Matthew Perry, the famous Chandler of one of the most famous TV series of all time, Friends, died. His bathroom on the last Saturday. And his life shows a repeated script. People who make others smile, but fight all their lives against their own sadness. And his biography reveals shocking, scary events and feelings. He says he spent millions on therapy, which in the end didn't help. He spent millions on alcohol and drugs, which also didn't fill his void. He slept with all kinds of women you can imagine, even Julia Roberts. But that didn't satisfy him either. He asked God to make him famous, but that didn't satisfy him either. Today I want to show you some of these revelations, which would be, I don't know, even some tips on would be the cause of his death. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about what he himself said in his biography. And remind you of Agostino's phrase, which is more current than this morning's newspaper. You created us, O God, for yourself, and our soul is restless until it finds rest in you. Like, comment, subscribe and let's go to another video. So come on, the latest information is that antidepressants have already been found in Chandler's. The famous Chandler of the very famous Friends series. This could suggest that he had a kind of overdose and drowned, like many other artists. Obviously, this will still be investigated, but it's impressive how this has happened before. Whitney Houston, for example, drowned in the bathroom after ingesting a sedative with cocaine. And there are many other stories extremely similar to this. Anyway, the life of the famous Chandler was a life of pure suffering. And how he tried, through legalized drugs, to escape this suffering. In his biography, he narrates what would perhaps be the great point of imbalance in his life. An unbalanced family. He says that at the age of 9, his parents had already separated. At the age of 5, he lived in Canada, his father in the United States. They put a 5-year-old boy on the plane so that he could travel alone to see his father in the States. And so, they went with the plate, right? Minor, unaccompanied. And that, he says, made him spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in therapy for the rest of his. He sums it like this. Going through that flight alone was one of the things that caused me the feeling of abandonment. Would accompany me for the rest of my life. He says that his mother spent a lot of time away. He said that at the time they would call him an abandoned child. Maybe if my life at home was more stable, if my father were present, I wouldn't feel bad all the. He summarized, perhaps, one of the great problems of his life. A family. How does a family have such a monumental weight on us? About who we will become. Finally, when his mother got married again and had a son, he narrates that, once again, he felt helpless. He felt that he was not part of it. And it's a feeling that seems obvious to me. The boy is there. His mother got married again. And the father is the father of the other child, but not his father. So, it's a feeling that many people, in circumstances like his, would feel. Or, in fact, feel. So, it's difficult. This difficult situation is impressive. As feminists, this is, in fact, their only achievement. Divorce. They celebrate it. It's pure suffering for the lives of children, for the lives of children. Continuing. In the biography, he tells how his traumas and fears were not resolved. Or rather, his traumas and fears were resolved with illicit drugs. He describes the first time he drank when he was 14 years old. For the first time in his life, nothing bothered him. And he reports that he felt complete and at peace and happy like never before. When he drank, he said, I was not abandoned. I didn't fight with my mother. I didn't feel bad at school. I didn't ask myself what the meaning of life was. I didn't even question my place in the world. This is impressive. How alcohol, how drugs, really have this power. It's not by chance that so many people get addicted. And of medicines, right? He also talked about medicines. He was addicted to all kinds of medicines. Legalized. All kinds of medicines. He said. Without the right medicine, I spent my whole life feeling uncomfortable and having a very distorted love. The great Randy Newman once said. I need a lot of drugs to be able to pretend that I'm someone else. And then he said. Apparently, I wasn't the only one. Said the famous Matthew Perry or Chandler. Another important detail in his life is that he preferred to sleep with all possible women to have healthy relationship with children, with a woman, and have children from that relationship. One of those many stories that sums up his life well, and of any current young man, he tells that. Met a girl and spent 2 years with her, but only having sex. A lot of sex. But they had some rules. Look, you can't talk about family, you can't talk about your personal things. It's obvious, it was like rule. Okay. It's just sex and it's over. This sums up his idea of life well, and of any young man today, right? Of any young man who really runs away from relationships, giving the most scattered excuses and seem even moral. As in his case, in my opinion, he says, it's because I was afraid of being abandoned. And it's our evil heart trying to find a morality for our immorality. Anyway, he reports that the key to his problem was that he didn't have a spiritual orientation and always wanting to be loved. It's a very perspicacious perception of what he lived. And that's really it. Without a spiritual orientation, without a strong faith, we seek refuge anywhere for our tired. And he also said that he was always trying to fill the spiritual emptiness he felt with material. God appears in his biography very few times. In one of them, when he prays to God so that God would make him famous. And what actually happened, 3 weeks after he made that prayer, he was in Friends. And why did he pray like that? Because he believed that being famous, his problems would be solved. And what is evident is that his faith in God is the same as described by Tiago. I believe that there is only one God, you do well, even the demons believe and tremble. I believe that it is also evident that sex, fame, money, and legalized pills cannot remove the lack. Purpose cannot tear out the emptiness that fills the human soul. I really believe that faith, a true faith in God, is the basis of salvation and also of a strong, happy life. Let me give you some examples of what I'm trying to say. The belief that God is your God, that everything cooperates for the good of those who love God, is absurd force. For example, you look at your sufferings, and they all have a purpose. Your parents, the suffering with your parents, in the family. You somehow understood, look at this, it made me strong. Anyway, God is using this as he used the death of Job's children so that he would approach God. So this is the first way that a true faith in God puts you on the axis. The second, because God himself puts joy. As we read, for example, in the Old Testament, God said he would put anxiety in the hearts of those who abandoned him. Just as David said that God put more joy in his heart than the joy of the impious when the impious. A stomach full of cereal and wine. So it's amazing how God is actually joy. The kingdom of God, Jesus said, is not food or drink, but joy. It's true, it's true. God is joy itself. The fruit of the Spirit is joy, says Paul in Galatians. And faith in God has another very important element to explain how a genuine faith in God makes us a balanced life. Faith in God always materializes, genuine faith, in love of others. In an abnegated life. Pastor, what are you talking about? That genuine faith in God is fundamental for a balanced life, a happy life. And then you say that genuine faith has to do with love of others. What does it have to do with love of others and happiness? It's what Jesus said. The one who dies, the one who loses his own life, will find life. It's true, in this abnegated world this is how it works. When you give up your own pleasures, you find pleasure. See an example of this. How Matthew Perry had a disorganized and selfish life. Like all of us, right? Without God, this is how we are. He says that he had a girlfriend who stayed with him in one of his several internments. She gave up her life for him. And how did she reward him? How did he reward her? When he became sober. With her help. He broke up with her. And he was sincere. He said, to sleep with several women. But he seemed very sincere to me. In the biography, it is obvious that we are human beings and lie all the time. You can know everything that is true. But it seemed to me, in many parts of his biography, that he was very sincere. Unlike many others, right? Who do not recognize that they are selfish. Who do not recognize that they are weak. For example, he assumed that he pretended to be in pain just to have more legalized medicine. But many do not assume that they are addicted to legalized medicine. He had the humility to recognize. And being very famous, right? Once again, the story of this very famous actor is a sample of what? Money. Fame. Sex. even with the most beautiful women in the world. One of the most desired by everyone, Julia Roberts, that all these things are not able to fill the soul. As Jesus said, not only bread will man live, but of every word. That is, we are not just matter, we are spirit. We need spiritual elements to satisfy our souls. Spiritual elements such as love, justice, purpose, and they all flow from God, from a genuine. He says he spent half his life in rehabilitation centers, which he described as a corrupt system. Existed only to take money from the needy. He also confesses that he spent millions of dollars on therapy. In the end, not all the money in the world, no legalized chemical substance or not, can fill the in the heart of man, which is the size of God, as Augustine said. You created us for yourself, O God, and our soul is restless until it finds rest in you. But the story of this actor who unfortunately passed away, I believe it is the story of human life. The human being is like that, all of us, in circumstances like his. I'm sure I would do the same or worse than him if it weren't for the grace of God. But the story of human life, the human being is not that prodigal son who thinks he can find joy from God, who thinks that with money he will end well. His story, unfortunately, is the story of anyone, and only reminds us how much God has. Be the basis of human existence and a genuine faith, and this faith will materialize in love for how much fame? It's funny, in the biography he tells the following, that he was part of a series that was a success. And he says, look, none of this changed his life completely. It's true, how we think too much about success, or worry too much about failure, and in the end, is not what is most important. All of this is part of the process, obviously, but what really puts you on the axis is a genuine is living life based on God, knowing that you exist for Him, that everything is for His glory, and materializing through love, a life based not on satisfying oneself, but on worrying about others. When you live like this, you have a balanced life. You may have little money, but you will have a balanced life. Fame or money, it doesn't matter, but a genuine faith and love for others, this, in fact, keeps you the axis. What do you think about this? Did you watch the series? Leave a comment here. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time. God bless you.